This is your host, Laura Winters, the heart-led pathfinder, intuitive energy healer, speech-language pathologist, and owner of Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC. Welcome to Miracle in Time, a mini-series podcast that brings you the stories of beautiful humans exploring the synchronicities, blessings, and miracles within our perception of time. It illustrates that events are not just happening to us, but for us. Life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, but it is a miracle in time. As a disclaimer, this podcast contains general information about various topics and medical conditions and is for educational purposes and inspiration only. Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness LLC is not responsible or liable for the accuracy of information contained in this podcast. The information contained in this episode is the personal views of the host and guests respectively. This podcast is not meant to replace the advice of your healthcare provider and is not intended to prescribe, prevent, treat, or diagnose disease. You assume all risks when you continue this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Miracle in Time. I'm here to introduce the next mini-series theme, Thriving Dry Eye. This was the first podcast that I had, and it ran for a year and a half. And it started as a way that I could get more healing on my journey. I had essentially felt like I had healed the physical aspects of the eyes, but there was still a lot of emotional things that were going on. And I was still having a little problem, I guess, physically with my eyes. And so I went on this journey of talking to people who were dealing with dry eye themselves because it can be such a debilitating disease. And I had so many feelings and emotions and frustrations because this was not something that should have happened to me. And there were so many nights where I just stayed up, just stewing and trying to come up with a solution for me. And so I wanted to make it easy for other people to be able to get information that they needed. I had learned so much on my journey, not just about the eyes themselves, but healing the physical body as well. What we're putting into our bodies, what we're being exposed to around us, and how eventually, all those things can bubble over and create these big illnesses and diseases that we present with. And so it was really a journey of exploration into my entire life and how I'm coming across and living my life and what I'm being exposed to. And so it wasn't just a one-note thing. And I wanted to bring in some people that I had met along the way and how they helped me heal as well. And so when I was preparing for a different theme that was going to come next, I kept getting information from other people that they were having difficulties with their eyes. And I wanted to say, oh, I have this podcast and I have this really good information, but I don't anymore. And what started as very physical healing of the body and the eyes turned into more holistic and more spiritual aspects. And when I presented those to the dry eye community, I got some pretty heavy backlash. And it wasn't from everybody, but it was from a couple of people that just really hit wrong. And I was like, I don't really need that negativity in my life. And when you have a podcast, it's a media company technically. And so it's really important that you have a business structure and you have liability insurance. And in order to do that, it can be pretty expensive. And through my Thriving Dry Eye company, it was a Thriving Dry Eye LLC. I had one meditation that you could purchase. And then I also had distance Reiki healing. And so, what ended up happening was like, the money going out was a lot more than the money coming in. And the time and energy that I was putting into it was way more than what I was receiving. And so it got to the point where when I wanted to have this physical business and provide healing to people in many different ways, I just wasn't aligning with that anymore. And I couldn't see how it was going to fit. And I also was ready to kind of let that go and move on to the next thing. So in order to do that, I took down all the podcast episodes and I closed out that business. And so that entity is there. And when I was trying to think of, okay, how can I legally bring those podcast episodes with the releases signed to this company and over to this one, I'm sure it wasn't going to be that hard, but I just didn't want to spend the time doing that. And months ago, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or so, I had asked everybody if they were willing to do a follow-up episode because the people who I had already speak to, I just loved. And, we're all evolving. We're all moving forward on our journey. And there's so much more that we're learning. And that information is so helpful as well. So a lot of people had responded that they were willing and totally would do that. And so I reached out to a few of them and said, hey, I'm not doing this podcast anymore, but I would really love to have you on my new podcast. And included in that is like the backstory, the information that you gave in the Thriving Dry Eye podcast, but also the evolution and where you are today, because that's so important. It's been a long time now. And, we hear a lot that dry eye disease can't be healed. It's chronic. You're never going to get over it. And I think that, hopefully you've learned through at least the last podcast episode that I very much believe that as long as you don't kind of close the door and that whatever is happening is your final destiny, then there's opportunity for things to happen. There's miracles that can happen, and there's a lot of room for growth and learning, and you just never know what's going to happen. So I think that when you get a final, this is what's happening, for me, it was, you have dry eye disease. It's chronic. It's never going to get better, or you can manage. It's never going to heal. I just never believed it. In my bones, I just never believed it. And so that wasn't an option for me. It wasn't an option for me to be putting something in my eyes every day. It wasn't an option for me to be thinking about my eyes every day. It wasn't an option for me to be going to doctors and, getting a bunch of stuff or whatever procedures they do for dry eyes. It just wasn't an option. I'm fairly young, I'm 38 now. And so when this happened, it was 5 years ago. So I was like 33, I didn't want to have something that went with me for another 60 years of my life, because I would love to live well into my 90s. And so, if not longer, but so it just wasn't an option. So through the Thriving Dry Eye podcast, like I said, I met really great people, and the information that they all provided was so, so good. And there is a lot of physical healing aspects that these guests are going to talk about. There's also going to be some more emotional things, some spiritual things. And I tried to pick a couple different people from a different lenses, seeing everything from a different lens. And in that, I also wanted to give you my couple episodes that I did myself about dry eye disease and my story. And so that's what you're going to hear first. You're going to hear first my original story that I put together. That was a lot of heart, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. And then the second part of my story, which provides a lot of information about the healing process that I went through. Now, recently, I've had a couple things come up that I'm realizing I still have a lot more healing to do. So, in terms of the physical aspects of my eyes, I don't feel like I have dry eye anymore. Now, it may be that someone looks at it and does tests and determines, yes, you actually do, which I hope is not the actual, is really not the case. But, it's definitely possible, but I'm not having symptoms. And when I do have symptoms of dry eye, then I now know to look inside. So what I learned along the way was that I wasn't seeing the truth in myself and in the world. And so when I have exacerbation of dry eye, I go inward and I ask myself, what is the truth that I'm not seeing from myself, in others, or in the world, what we're hearing from other things? And when I can find where the truth is, where I'm not seeing it, then my eyes get better. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And so there is this energetic component, there's a spiritual component, emotional and physical. And if we're not addressing all of these areas, then we're not really hitting the disease process itself and your ability to be able to heal it. So I don't want to go too deep into information because my guests and my other episodes are definitely going to do that. And I'm very confident that this is going to be a great mini series because I was led here. I thought I was done, thought I was over, but the more and more things kept coming up was like, wait a second, I need to revisit this. Oh, and also I was going to say that recently I've had a couple events. Like I had an injury at work that I hurt my tailbone. And so when I went to get evaluated with workers' comp, I had all these feelings come back. So you're going to hear that in my story about that workman's comp situation and the doctor. But I had so many emotions come through me because this doctor who saw me was so kind, was so compassionate, and believed what I had to say. And I just had so much emotion come through. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe this is how I'm feeling just in this situation, which was a little bit of PTSD, which I told her, like, hey, I've had a bad experience before, and I feel like I'm having a little bit of PTSD right now, that this, just the whole situation. And I had recently listened to something about PTSD and that, you're not reliving the same thing, but you're opening the wound again. And so that's what was happening. It was like the wound was being opened again and revealing what needed to be healed inside. And I've also been on a journey of, trying to heal my vision. And so I went to a new ophthalmologist who's more open to, she does vision therapy. So that's not totally mainstream. And so she thinks a little bit different. And even through this, just talking to her about the eyes itself, about vision, I just had so many emotions and so many feelings come up. So I know now that piece is totally not healed. I may have healed the physical symptoms that I had before, but there's so much emotional trauma and probably some spiritual stuff that is still not healed. And so I'm very thankful for this opportunity to come back around to Thriving Dry Eye and having these guests that I had before be excited to do another episode, because that just tells me like that there is more healing to be had. The waves that we were able to make before and the connections that I was able to make with people definitely made an impact. And it feels wonderful. So even if you do not suffer from dry eye disease, I would love for you to continue to listen to these beautiful people that have gone through very hard times and have this knowledge to move forward in your life. There are so many people on this planet suffering from dry eye disease, and being able to understand where a family member or friend is coming from when they talk about it can make all the difference in the world. So I really encourage you to just continue listening and continue learning and have this arsenal of information that you can pull out when you need to. And I really hope that this moves you in more ways than one. Thank you for listening to this Miracle in Time. Thank you for listening to Miracle in Time. If you would like to explore a theme or know someone perfect for this podcast, please fill out a form on yourlightllc.com/podcast. If you would like to learn more about my services, you can visit the website at yourlightllc.com. I want you to remember that with all life's ups and downs, you are divinely held and guided throughout your journey. Don't miss out on this miracle in time.